Welcome again as we move on with this series on how to excel in your exams. Today we may have a little more than what we did in the previous two sessions to cover, and so I may just be a little faster than the previous ones. As usual, my name is Otieno Paul Peter from Live Your Dream, and my desire is that you may live your dream. And as Nelson Mandela once said, education is the greatest equalizer. In fact, it's through education that people from all walks of life, child of a pauper, child of a minister, can meet and sit around the same table, because education will be able to lift wherever you are. It will be able to lift you and meet the nobilities and the success that you're looking for. Without education, there is minimal chance. Everything else will be hinged on your education. And so today we're going to cover 3 tips very fast. And the first one is tools. When you're preparing for exams or going for an exam, you know there could be tools that are required to enable you be able to accomplish the objective, to do your exams efficiently. And part of that would be perhaps a calculator, a ruler, maybe you need some pencils, some rubber, maybe some coloring. Whatever it is that you think you're going to require, prepare them in advance. Don't be surprised. And this is why in the previous sessions we said if you've been going through revision papers, you are in a position to tell what kind of tools. Sometimes you may not be told all of them, or you may be told but quite late, or you reach the exam and you realize that in the question paper they say what you need to have. You will not go out and start looking for them. So just prepare yourself in advance, see how you can obtain them. If need be, you can borrow them. Most of us have been able to borrow previously and still were able to pass. And if there is somebody with whom you want to share, and I think this should be allowed in many exam rooms, you can always tell the invigilator in advance. Tell the person in charge that myself and so seated at the other corner, we have this tool to share. So when I will need it, I will ask you to go and bring it to me, so that they know. Please get to know that there are tools that you may need, and without which there are questions that you will leave blank, which is very unfortunate. You should not do such a thing. And next, I'd like us to check the value of time. To many of us, the moment you start exam, you start panicking, and shortly thereafter, maybe it was an exam for 1.5 hours, it's 30 minutes down, and the invigilator, whoever is in charge, will tell you 30 minutes down. And sometimes we even interpret it differently, as if it is only 30 minutes left. And we start getting into panic mode. And remember, panic will not help us in any way. So it's always good to have your watch, value the time, and there is no exam if there is no time. Exam must be set within time limits. I remember in my Form 4, I think so, one of the exams, when I came out, I was doing maths, and I realized I didn't get time to finish everything. And I was sharing with a friend of mine. He was called Joshua. I told him, Joshua, you know what? I didn't finish. And he asked me, what were you doing? Now, I didn't like that question. And he said, a whole 2 hours, you are not able to finish your mathematics paper. What were you doing? From that time on, I never left. I never repeated the same mistake. I always finished much earlier, whatever it was. So value time, and be sure that if it is not timed, it is not exam, have your watch. You might even want to put it in the form of a stopwatch so that you're able to see how many minutes have gone, and so you know how many are left. You see? So be in charge of time, otherwise you will be panicking whenever they announce. You will already know how you are doing and how much is left, how much time is left, how much is gone. So this keeps you in control. You're not going to listen to other voices. And by the way, you need to focus on yourself, not listening. As long as you've known the time period given and you know what time you're supposed to finish, focus on that. Don't listen to any other announcement except if it is a correction that they are announcing. Don't panic. This throws many people off guard. You're not supposed to panic, whatever the situation, and you must keep in charge. Keep your mind in charge, because if you panic, even the little things that you could remember, even whatever you have read, might just vanish. And lastly, I'd like to talk about, now we are starting to get inside the exam and starting to do it. So some of the things I've been able to learn about doing exam and passing is, I remember in class 7, I think so, one of my teachers, when we were preparing for exams, said, forget everything else, but don't forget your common sense. Forget everything else, but don't forget your common sense. Why? Because a lot of questions will require you to make use of common sense. You see? And if you do not make use of that common sense, you're likely to perhaps overthink and even mess up. So don't forget your common sense. I remember in one of my schools, the head teacher who was teaching mathematics at one point gave lots of tough problems for people to solve, and then later in the questions he also put a simple question, more or less like 1 + 1, and people started drawing logarithm tables and writing big equations. Always remember your common sense. Don't forget. There are exam questions for everyone. So don't panic, don't think about anything else. Just know that there could be tough questions which are meant for very exemplary students, tough students. There are those average questions that are meant for average people, and then there are simpler questions that are meant for all. Yeah, everyone should be able to do them. So just get to know, in every paper, a standard examination, there are questions for everyone. Yes, so just be sure you will always get enough that you are able to do it. More so if you've gone through the revision like we discussed previously, and if you've not gone through our previous sessions, our previous episodes on the same, please just go through so that you are up to speed about what we are talking about. So get to know there are exam questions for everyone. Yeah, no need to worry. Motivate yourself. Motivating yourself. How do you motivate yourself? I remember when I was young, I had a friend who really loved fighting, and he always won. He always defeated his opponents. So I asked him one day, how do you manage? And then he told me, every time I'm going to fight, I remember all the wars I've fought, all the fights I've been involved in and won. And so that motivates me, and I tell myself, even this, I'm going to do it. And I started using this methodology. Every time I was getting to exam, I find a paper is very difficult. One, I tell myself, it's probably difficult for everyone. And number two, I have passed so many exams in life, and even this, I'm going to pass. I remember when I was doing my MSc paper, it was on telecommunications, and I'd not prepared, because when I reached for this paper, I realized that there were so many notes that I did not have. I just noted that people were revising lots of other slides. They were in slides, and over 100 of them, I did not have them. And I was wondering, where was I when they were all given this? But I got into that exam, it was tough. I told myself, if I've passed all the other exams previously, even this, I'm going to pass. And by the way, I did pass. Now, this is my formula. Start with the simplest first. The ones you are very sure of. And do them well, not to waste time on them, but do them well, do them fast enough, but do them well, so that at least you've bagged some marks for your exams. So I often I scan through the whole paper, see the simplest ones that I can identify, do all of them, and answer them very well. And be sure that if you are doing an exam that has multiple choices, then you must be sure that you mark the answer sheet accurately. Because if we pass a number, if you are probably starting on number 1, number 2, then you skipped number 3 and went to number 4, and maybe when you skipped number 5 and 6, went to number 7, you're likely to mark, instead of marking number 5, you're likely to mark number 4, which you skipped. Or instead of marking number 7, you're likely to still mark number 4. So this will happen if you are not very sober, if you are panicking. So you must be sure that you're accurate. If you are solving number 1 and you got the answer to be A, ensure it is number 1 you are marking. And this is something that happens more so when you are passing some questions to solve later. And I realized that as I finished the ones I was sure of, even the ones I was sure I wasn't very sure of, I tended to even remember them better and understand them, and therefore was able to solve them. You see, so you start with the simplest, and then you go to the next range, and then the next, and you finish with the toughest, the ones that involve most of your time, or the ones that are longest. You must solve in that order. Otherwise, you might take a lot of your time solving a particular problem, taking too long, and by the end of the day, you miss the opportunity to do what you would have done much faster, and so you don't pass. Remember that rule. Here is another thing that I keep in my mind. Never leave any space blank. And this is why, if you remember, I was talking about in the last session, that you must, when you are revising, ensure that you cover the syllabus. And the first reading, you are just to read through, even without thinking much, so that you have an idea. Don't leave any space, any question unanswered as much as possible. Try to fill in everything. You never know. It could be out of 10 marks, you end up getting 1. That's fine. That's better than 0. So just ensure you fill them. Now, if it is a multiple choice questions, it's even easier, because you always, if there are 4 choices, you always have 25% chance of getting the right answer. So you do not want to let that 25% chance go. Recently, I had somebody say that even if you chose, maybe you are left with 10 questions and you choose to make them all C, you have a chance of getting quite a number of them, because you have a chance. For multiple choice questions, it's the easiest. You always have 25% already when you get in through probability. So don't leave any spaces, any blank spaces in your questions. It will improve your chances of passing exams. And never be mocked. This is a very important point. I remember in my Form 4, during our time, and nowadays I think it's not there, there used to be mock. A mock exam was meant to prepare you to get how ready you are, and as the name suggests, it would mock you. So I went to this exam, and well, I had been out for some time, so I had just come back to school, I think for around 6 months or something, including the holidays. And I had done my best to read as much as I could within that time. So getting into this mock, which was around July, and our main exam would come in October, or towards the end of October or something like that, I got into this exam and I got mathematics paper, which to me was very simple. I actually thought I would get A in this, over 80% thereabout. And I did it pretty fast. I was excited about it, but at the end of it, I got 40-something%. I was mocked. And for once, I realized that the simpler the paper looks, the more attention it might require from you. You need to be careful, because most times we don't concentrate and understand the question properly. We end up answering other questions and giving our own answers which were not intended. So remember, if a question paper is simple, don't take it for granted. Just deal with it with the seriousness it deserves. Otherwise, you will be mocked and you will hate yourself, because every time you will always remember that exam paper was simple, but I played. See you next week. That's the end of today's session. And next week, we're going to delve more inside the exam arena, inside how do you handle those questions and specific examples. Otherwise, I remain yours, Otieno Paul Peter. More about me is on otienopaulpeter.com. And my wish is that you will excel in all your exams and live your dream. I've done it previously, I've done all the exams, and I believe that the insight I'm sharing with you will be able to help you, and maybe after your exams you will share insight with me, you'll give me some feedback. Thank you for tuning in, thank you for subscribing. Just in case you haven't, please subscribe and share with other people as well, so that everyone will be better prepared. Till next week, have a blessed time and a fantastic revision time. Thank you.